So like I know you mentioned you have some jokes that you just don't do anymore. Are these completely like just moments where you just made the judgment yourself just based on like, oh, the times have passed for this to do it? Or have there been moments where you've been confronted or complained about? Never had any encounters with audience members?
Nobody's ever really said anything to me other than
just been your own judgment.
Yeah. And a lot of it has to do with times. This might come out weird, so I'm going to try to frame it as best I can. But I did a joke right before literally the night before everything shut down with COVID. It was one of the best sets I ever had, where I was pretending like I was running for president, and I had this joke, and one of the punchline, it was obviously extremely tongue in cheek, and I was just being stupid.
Yeah, I remember the joke. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But I made a joke that was kind of a Jewish joke. And, again, very lighthearted and not like horrible.
Right.
But I'll never do it again, because you saw kind of the tide turned and people started actually really hating the Jews again. And I was like, I don't want to be a part of that.
Right.
So there's a number of things that kind of, as the climate's changing or has changed, that I just don't feel comfortable doing that subject, because I don't want to be associated with the people who really have these terrible ideologies. Yeah. And I think, because here's kind of what I was getting at the time, obviously the Jews have had a little bit of a rough past, but it felt, yeah, I know. Well, I'll send you some links later. But it felt almost like it was so far in the past, like there's no way people actually still feel this way. And maybe I was being ignorant. I know there's, morons out there that hate or whatever, but it felt, risky, but safe enough for people to understand it was a complete joke. And that's kind of what I was saying. Like, now I don't think it would be safe at all.
Yeah, I see. And I understand that completely. And I think that there's maybe like, there's very few things that have made me go, I think there's at least one thing, I'm not even going to say what it is, but there's at least one thing that I've done historically and been like, it's just like anything else, but then got to a certain point with just social pushback locally and broad scale globally, just in comedy, that I've gone, you know what, like I still find this funny. I still think it can be made funny, but I just don't.
Not worth the hassle.
Yeah, it's not worth the hassle. Just because the consequences if I misstep or fail, it's just, they can be really bad.
So,
but I was gonna say, in response to what you're saying, is like, for the most part, I'm the opposite. Like, if it's a hot button issue, like as soon as the Kanye thing with the Jew thing, like that was what my material was for that week. Like, as soon as Kobe Bryant died, that was what my material was for the week. As soon as my dad died, that's what the material was for the week. Like, it's whatever is, and the dad dying, I guess, is out of context, but it's more just, even when it's personal, it's what I do. But yeah, I feel like largely the point of me even continuing to be on social media, as much as I mostly don't like it, is so that I have some sort of sense of like, what is the super taboo, sensitive thing that's the most prominent in the zeitgeist, because that's where the tightrope walk is most visible and the most tension can be built. And that's where I'm interested in as a comic. But I know that's not what your interests are in.
Not at all. Even though I could see those things as being funny, like you and I talking or something like that, it would not be something that I would present on stage comfortably. So we definitely differ in that way.
Yes.
So going back to material that you may not do or feel comfortable doing anymore, do you blame it all on like the climate, or do you think some of it is, as you've gotten older, you're like, man, that was kind of childish? Or because I have a lot of jokes that I was like, well, that's such an easy joke, like there's no thought behind it, I'm not doing that anymore. Or it touches a subject that I just don't feel comfortable talking about, not even because of the way the world is right now, just because I've matured a little bit. And
also in this answer, I'm going to clarify too, because I've probably said a lot to where it seems like I'm just entirely frustrated by this larger socio-political climate change sort of thing. And I want to say I mostly actually like it. Like I actually kind of like, again, as long as it stays with just audience members, I like that pressure.
Sure.
It makes it more fun to do the tightrope walk. It's that line where it crosses into bookers and comedians where that gets annoying and frustrating for me.
Understood.
But otherwise, I think even with just what's going on currently with that socio-political climate shift, there's always some sort of socio-political climate shift happening just throughout history. And you have to adapt to that. You have to change. You are going to change as being part of it because you can't be separate. You can't be a human being and be separate from it. But you're also like, you're not just like a sole monologuist doing comedy. There is the response of the audience is completely pertinent. So you have to shape your material so that the audience's response.
So sorry.
No, it's okay. You have some sort of chance to get a laugh. And so it doesn't make sense if the socio-political climate has shifted so much so that you literally cannot get a laugh from this joke anymore. So a lot of times it's not so much like I've morally decided, oh, this joke is morally wrong in my opinion now.
It's just not workable as a joke.
Yes, it's just not workable anymore. And of course, there's plenty of things where, like, to me, I've made the judgment this just isn't that good. It's like I am a better comedian than this now. This is just not a solid. And there's plenty of jokes that seem to transcend the time or the level of comedian I was at the time that I made it. Like there's some jokes I did in my first like year or two that still hold up.
Yeah.
Like really short ones. Like I've been taking a women's self-defense class, so I know what I'm up against.
That's a great joke.
Yeah. Super short. It's fucked up, but it's one of those ones where like out of town comics have come through, like the touring headliners and stuff, and have seen me do that joke, and then will tell me off to the side like that's a fucking really.
It is a good joke.
You're using the fewest words possible to say something that's really fucked up, but in a way where you're not saying it in the worst way possible.
Right.
Yes.
No, yeah. That's great, and that is a joke that I wish I had written.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Can I have that joke?